Hi, I hope you find yourself well. My name is Marian, and as you can see by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about the reasons why I got rid of my crystals. Before I get into this video, I do want to throw out a disclaimer that this video is not intended to throw shade to anyone who believes or uses crystals. These are just my personal reasons as to why I got rid of mine. And with all of that out of the way, I do want to briefly explain how I even got into crystals to begin with. About 4 years ago, I want to say back in 2018, around that time I was going through so much emotionally and mentally that I was really craving some spiritual connection. I had been going to church and I had never been a very religious person. And I started going to church almost on a weekly basis, but it felt like I was missing something. And like I had mentioned, I had never been a super spiritual person as far as religion goes. I was raised Catholic, but as I grew up, that slowly started to change a little bit for my beliefs. I, of course, do believe in God. I was still trying to find myself, my spiritual connection, and it just felt like something was missing. Around that time, I stumbled across several videos on YouTube about spirituality and connecting with your higher self, how you can get connected to the universe, and it really intrigued me. I was very interested in learning more about it, and I slowly started to watch more and more videos. Then one time I went into the library and stumbled across a book called The Secret, which a lot of people know about that book, and that is the very first time that I had learned about the law of attraction, and that really interested me, and I slowly started to get more and more involved when it came down to manifestation and just learning about your higher self and the universe. And it all started with The Secret, and I slowly started to get more involved into reading more about the law of attraction, spirituality, and from there I kept on reading other books related to The Secret. I think I have the whole collection at this point, but it just really intrigued me, and I was finding myself reaching for more books on spirituality and law of attraction and manifestation that I slowly started to realize that I was becoming very, very involved. But then I stumbled across another video that talked about crystals and how they keep you grounded and all of the great benefits that they have and all of the properties that you can use them for. And it just really interested me that after that video, I thought that I had attracted certain things into my life, and I was gifted a selenite crystal, which I had been really wanting to get my hands on one after learning all of the properties that it had. And that is how I started to get into crystals. I looked up where I had a metaphysical shop around me, and I went for the first time and absolutely fell in love with all of the beautiful crystals that were there. I asked one of the ladies that was there about specific crystals, and I wanted to really get my hands on crystals that really kept me grounded and kept me feeling at peace and kept me feeling safe. And I really wanted crystals for protection because that's how I thought I was going to be safe. And of course that is not at all the case, but that is just how I started to get into crystals and being involved with the whole spirituality realm. My collection for crystals slowly started to grow. As time went by, I slowly started to really depend on these crystals depending on specific things that I wanted to attract into my life, or depending on how I wanted to feel, or if I was feeling a certain way, I would depend on a crystal to carry with me, and in hopes that it would make me feel safe and just happy, which it's crazy to say right now because that is not at all the case right now, but that is how I was feeling at the time, and I really started to depend a lot on these crystals. And meditating with these crystals made me feel great at the time, but on the back of my mind I knew that there was something more that I needed to do, and I was still craving to find what that was. And I didn't know at the time, but I started to get a little bit more involved, and I went to my metaphysical shop and asked one of the ladies there what she recommended, and she recommended a lot of crazy things that I did really not want to get too involved into the occult. I knew that once you get very involved, it can be a very tricky place. You have to be very, very careful because you can attract things that you don't necessarily want to attract or want to call on. and I really was very careful. But one of the things that she recommended was that if I wanted, or if I was seeking more clarity, that I could get a oracle deck, or I could get a tarot card deck. I wasn't really too interested in tarot, but I was interested in the oracle cards, and she did explain that there's many different ways that you can do it. At the time, she explained to me, since I was just getting started, I could just start by pulling one card a day and asking whatever it is that I wanted to ask, and just pulling a card, and then that I would get my answer. Or if I needed clarity on a particular thing, that I could call onto my angels and that they would communicate with me. And at the time, it felt like it was a good idea. We're talking about angels. But when you get really involved in that, you really don't know who is going to be present, what spiritual things can be in the room with you, and you just have to be very careful. I just would pull out a card and I would get a little bit nervous because I didn't want to call anything that I didn't want to be with me. I didn't want to get too involved into the occult, like I had mentioned, but I slowly started to get more and more involved in that. And then one day I just felt something. It's so hard to explain, but I felt something that was not right, and it kind of spooked me out a little bit. It made me feel like I shouldn't be messing with that, and I stopped using the oracle deck for a couple weeks. But then, as curious as I was, I went back to my metaphysical store and I asked more questions. I tried to get a little bit more clarity because I was still going through so much, and I wanted some clarity. I wanted something that would fulfill me, and I'm talking about something spiritually. I really wanted to connect to God, and it was a little bit difficult for me to go to church every single week. I just wanted something that really made me feel happy and gave me some sort of peace, and I just really depended a lot on these crystals. But there was a time when my daughter started having really bad nightmares. At the time, she did sleep in the same room as I did. Sometimes we'd be sleeping and she would just start crying, but she wouldn't wake up. She was crying in her sleep, and I didn't really want to wake her up because I didn't want to freak her out. And that happened for several weeks, that I slowly started to ask for help. I talked to my mom and she said, well, maybe you do need to go to church, maybe ask the priest and see what he suggests. Maybe there's something that is tormenting her and you want to take care of that as soon as possible. And as the days went by, it started to get more and more severe, to the point where I would try to hold her and she'd be like kicking me and throwing hands, and she just wouldn't wake up. She was still very deep in her sleep, and it freaked me out. So after that very last time, I decided I'm going to go to church. I'm going to ask and see what they suggest at the church and see if there's anything we could do for my daughter, maybe pray or do something. And I started to get more and more involved. Every single night before the kids went to bed, I would start praying, reading the Bible, and just started to really connect with God. That slowly it started to subside. It was almost a daily thing that she would have these episodes, but then as I started to get closer to God, I started to realize that these episodes kind of be on and off. So sometimes she'd have them for a day and then she wouldn't have them for maybe like 4 days or so. And then slowly it started happening only once a week, and then it just completely stopped. So with all of that, it made me realize that I did need to get closer to God, and it did fulfill me. It made me feel like finally there was something there that I needed, and I needed God in our lives, especially with everything that we had been through. The evil tries to kind of get attached to those negative circumstances, and it was just my time to get closer to God, and it really helped. But shortly after that, my life took another turn, and I found myself again being in chaos. And as a single mother, it was always really hard to try to manage everything by myself. And again, slowly, I didn't even realize when it happened, I slowly started to turn away from praying every single night. Next thing, I stopped reading the Bible every single night. I would reach for the Bible maybe once a week. I started to sleep with my crystals. I kept all of my crystals in a little box in my nightstand. Sometimes I would just open my drawer, pull some crystals, and then put them under my pillow, which I later learned that you're not supposed to do that because they do have a lot of energy, and it kind of disturbs your sleeping patterns depending on what crystal you're using. I didn't know that at the time, but I did notice a huge difference with my sleeping patterns. I sometimes had a hard time sleeping, or sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and then I'd wake up in the morning feeling completely restless. But I slowly started to gravitate more towards my crystals and doing my meditations with the crystals and lighting up incense. And one time I met up with a friend and she had mentioned about trying the crystal healing bed, and she told me how I can really balance your chakras, and that maybe some of the things that I was going through was because I wasn't properly aligned. And I started to get into the chakras and learning about all the different types that there are, and I started getting involved with that, reading a little bit more on that, and I decided to give it a try. I did about 3 or 4 sessions of the crystal bed healing. The very first time that I tried it, I felt very emotional. I felt like there was something in that room, but the lady that was doing it assured me that it was nothing bad, that if I did feel the presence, it was the angels. She had a bunch of different types of things in that room, all kinds of saints and angels. And so it kind of gave me a peace of mind knowing that there was nothing evil in that room as far as imagery goes. But again, I really trusted her, so I didn't think that it was anything bad. And the several other times that I tried it, I felt the same thing, very emotional, and I did always feel that presence in that room. But again, she assured me that it was nothing evil. And I started to feel very, I don't want to say drained, but very tired. And she told me that that was completely normal. But there was something about the whole situation and the experience that it made me feel like there was something not right, you know. And I did have really vivid dreams after every single session that I would do. I would go to sleep very tired, and some of those dreams were not good dreams. It felt like there was something that was trying to connect with me, something that kind of spooked me, and I stopped doing the whole crystal healing bed. And with all of these vivid dreams, I did dream one time that I was in the end of times and there was complete chaos happening, and that freaked me out. I woke up super scared. But then another time I dreamt that I was in the mountains and I was in nature. I felt the nice fresh air and it made me feel at peace. It made me feel like I was given another opportunity for a fresh start. And that's when something just clicked, and I felt like maybe there was something that I was doing wrong. I needed to completely start over. The following day after that, I reached over and grabbed my Bible and I opened it, and it just really made me feel at peace, and it made me feel like I was exactly where I needed to be. Slowly after that, I started to declutter. I started cleaning and just getting rid of a lot of things that I no longer used and no longer needed. And when I got into my nightstand, I pulled out my crystal box and I just put it in the opposite side of the room. And it was not until like a couple days after that that I realized that I was able to sleep so much better, and I was really feeling so much more restful at night. It kind of just clicked that it was maybe the crystals that was really just draining my energy, and it just made me feel so good that I slowly started to kind of forget about the crystals. At that point, I just felt so much more connected to God. I started reaching for my Bible almost every single night and praying, and it just made me feel at peace. It was almost as if I had found the spiritual connection that I was really craving for and looking for. And that's when I realized that I needed spiritual healing. I was looking for a quick and easy way to solve my problems, and for whatever reason, I felt like anything metaphysical was really the solution. While at the time it was bringing me peace and joy, but I was really urging for so much more. I realized that I needed to trust God and to seek God only. I didn't need anything physically to protect me or to solve my problems. It is really all within me, my faith and my trust in God. It truly is a whole journey, and I'm currently in a healing journey. At this time, I realized that I really didn't need all these crystals or oracle cards to solve my problems or to give me any clarity, because once I started seeking God and having him more in my life and completely trusting and having faith in him is when I realized that I could only really depend on God and nothing else. And that is when I decided to just completely get rid of everything. And when I did this, it really felt like such a relief, like I got rid of something that was no longer serving me. And I kid you not, after I got rid of everything, I felt so much better, so much more peace and joy, and spiritually I feel like I am really nourishing my soul. When I started getting closer to God, I started opening my eyes to the truth and getting clarification on these crystals. Although they are created by God, it does speak about not idolizing them. The way that we are using crystals now is not of God. The crystals themselves don't have any harm. They are completely gorgeous and they're just so beautiful to look at, but it's when we start really attaching a specific meaning or idolizing them that it really becomes impure and not godly. And for all of these reasons is why I really stopped using them. There are many different kinds of crystals and many different properties attached to them by society, which if you are one who uses them and believes in them wholeheartedly, to each their own. I made this video just to share my personal eye-opening experience and hope that it helps anyone who is really having second thoughts to get some clarity. The Bible never talked about assigning any mystical properties to these crystals. I accepted that crystals are just beautiful minerals that God created, that they are not meant to be used for any particular purposes or to have any healing properties. I, for one, didn't want to get involved with the occult. I realized that the more that I got involved with it, it was really pulling me away from God, from praying, from reading the Bible, little things like this. And I felt like something deep inside of me was missing. Again, this is just my personal experience. I really hope that you found this video helpful and that you really find that healing that you are looking for. Please consider subscribing for more upcoming videos and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for stopping by, and until next time.